It is Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here, and it is time to answer your questions. A Rumors mailbag segment. We do these on our live shows each and every Wednesday where people use the hashtag Seahawks. They super chat. We react to their questions in real time, and this is our last mailbag before the season begins. So I'm fired up to get right after it and answer your questions that you have for us today. Let's start with Peter, who writes, which wide receiver will have a great game this Sunday against the Rams? I got to tell you, we have talked a lot about these young receivers over the last several weeks, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, Jake Bobo and company, but have we already forgotten the greatness of DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett? I mean, these guys, I think, are going to be spectacular this year, and I got to tell you, I think DK has kind of been forgotten about. Remember, we talked about him a lot last offseason, waiting to see if he would get that contract extension, and he did. He's been paid now. He's going to be a Seahawk for a long time. I'm looking at when I see that Rams team with no Jalen Ramsey there and that defense, the way that they've just kind of gone by the wayside, no Bobby Wagner there anymore either. DK Metcalf, I think, is going to be a mismatch, and there's no reason why he can't have a great performance on Sunday. Look out for DK Metcalf to have a big day for the Seahawks. Stafford writes, do you think Geno Smith will do as good or better than last year, seeing how we did with the draft? The number one thing that I want to see from Geno Smith in 2023, on top of playing at the level that he did last year, the thing that he could step up and improve is cutting back on turnovers, on mistakes that he makes. You look at these statistics from last year, and it was a tale of two seasons, essentially, for Geno Smith. His numbers last year in the second half of the season weren't nearly as good as they were in the first half of the year. And in large part, that was because of mistakes he made and the turnovers, turn the ball over too much. And for me, I want to see Geno play at the level that he did in the first half of last year all season long, but his numbers should go up just by having better talent around him. We've talked about the young cats of JSN and Jake Bobo, but think about not just those guys, but the run game with not just Kenneth Walker, but with this group that includes the likes of Kenny McIntosh and Zach Charbonnet and DeeJay Dallas and company. This Seahawks offense is loaded, and they're explosive. The offensive line is better, too. No reason why Geno Smith shouldn't be able to take another step here in 2023. Jared writes in, what do you think, who do you think will score the first touchdown for our Hawks this season? Something is telling me, Jared, you're asking me for who to place a wager on, to get your future bet in. And you can do so at chatsports.com/bet, promo code Seahawks125. I would say first touchdown, look for it to be on the ground. Don't count out Kenneth Walker to get a touchdown score and get things going offensively for the Seahawks on offense. Red zone touchdown, Kenneth Walker, that's where I place my bet on as far as that goes. Chatsports.com/bet, promo code Seahawks125. Legion of Boom Forever 1 writes, why is DeeJay Dallas running back number 2? Who will be the Seahawks' leading rusher? Legion of Boom Forever, good question. Why is DeeJay Dallas the number 2 running back on the depth chart? Because he's the oldest. The experience is the reason why he holds that spot for now. And that's, I think, the key word is for now. I don't think that he is going to be the number 2 running back for the long term. We're going to see Zach Charbonnet be that guy. But I expect, as much as we've talked about how the Seahawks have all these different runners, besides just Kenneth Walker, but using a second-round pick on Charbonnet, using a seventh-round pick on McIntosh, and Dallas there, and what's that mean for Kenneth Walker and his future? Is he still the lead back for this team? The offense still starts with Kenneth Walker running the football. He is going to have a fantastic year, and history tells us that Seahawks wear out their running backs. They'll need multiple running backs to get through the season. So Kenneth Walker is going to lead this team in rushing, but I think he's going to have a great year, and the other guys will be good as well. Charbonnet will eventually be that number 2 running back. Who will lead the Seahawks in rushing this season? Do you agree with me? I say that it will be Kenneth Walker. Is it somebody else? Give me a name. Chime in the comments section or pin comment today and let us know. Subscribe now and join us for our weekly mailbag segments here on the channel. We are live every Wednesday answering your questions in real time when people use the hashtag Seahawks in Super Chat. And it is a lot of fun, I got to tell you. It's great to interact directly with the 12s. Subscribe now. That way you join us for our next live show and get your questions answered here on Seahawks Today. Next question comes in. What do you think? Why do you think the Seahawks switched to a 3-4 defense? It all depends on preference of your defensive coordinator. That's what it's really about. And Clint Hurt, I think, the reason why that he went to this is what he was comfortable with, what he wanted to do. And you look at the personnel. I mean, let's just go with what the Seahawks are at right now. If you ask this team with their lineup to play a 4-3, this team would be in a whole lot of trouble right now if they were trying to play a 4-3 defense. We've already had plenty of discussions as is of the weaknesses of the Seahawks, of what they have on the interior of the defensive line. Could you imagine if they tried playing a 4-3 right now? That would not work. That would be a problem if they played a 4-3 defense right now. So with that said, the Seahawks are doing the right thing schematically with this 3-4 defense with what their personnel has at the moment. JTB writes in, will we see Jake Bobo in week 1? And if so, how much time you think he'll get? Yeah, we'll definitely see Jake Bobo in week 1. And, I look back at that last preseason game. The Seahawks didn't even want to play Jake Bobo because he'd already secured a spot on the roster, but they were so shorthanded that he had to play. And what do you know? He had a terrific preseason game. You can't hide Jake Bobo. What we've seen from Bobo throughout the preseason is that he always finds a way to get involved one way or the other. So I think that's what you're going to see from Jake Bobo and this Seahawks offense is that you can't disappear. You can't pull a magic trick and him just be gone. He'll be there one way or the other. So even if he is Seattle's number 4 or 5 receiver, we're going to get more Bobo. You're going to be spamming more Bobo in the chat, and you're going to love it. So, yes, we will see him, and I expect him to play well. Today's show is presented by BetUS. I was asked earlier who I'd be betting on for a prop bet for first touchdown. I'm putting my bet on Kenneth Walker. You can bet on that. You can also bet on this weekend's game against the Rams, where the Seahawks are 5.5-point favorite. Bet on the over-under. Maybe you want to bet on other games across the National Football League. You can do so at chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Seahawks125, where you too, yes you, haven't forgotten about you, can get a 125% deposit bonus at chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Seahawks125 to get your bets in today. That's chatsports.com/bet. Promo code Seahawks125 to get your bets in now. Frody says, do you think Kenny McIntosh is underrated? I absolutely do think that Kenny McIntosh is underrated. And the thing that I see when it comes to Kenny McIntosh is that this is a guy that I think has been, how would I describe this, ignored for what he does best. Think of Kenny McIntosh as like a specialty NBA player. When you watch NBA basketball, what we're seeing across rosters over the NBA, what's really evolved over the last 10 years plus, is specialists for different things. You have your defensive specialists, you have your three-point specialists, you have your post-defense players, whatever it may be. Kenny McIntosh for the Seattle Seahawks team is going to be the pass-catching running back. Eventually, one day, he'll replace DeeJay Dallas. And I think that is kind of being pushed to the wayside, kind of being forgotten about of how good he is at that role and the impact he's going to make for the Seahawks. I had him higher than a 7th-round grade. I thought he could have been a 5th-round pick, potentially. He was a steal for Seattle. I liked it, and I'm excited to see what he does. Carter writes in, could Tyler Lockett get traded if Njigba is elite? Not this year, but down the line, potentially. Here's the deal. Bottom line is this. Some people don't like to hear this, but it's the truth. Jaxon Smith-Njigba is the eventual replacement for Tyler Lockett. Might be next offseason, might be 2 or 3 years from now. I don't know when it is. But eventually, at some point, Smith-Njigba will be Tyler Lockett's replacement. I don't know when that happens, but eventually, yes. That is his job that eventually he'll have is in Lockett's place. Teddy G writes, do you think the Seahawks will cut or trade Diggs and Adams next season? Diggs will be back. Adams, I think this is his 1 year in Seattle, and then they're going to try to find a way to move on from him. I don't see him sticking around. Hall of Fame GOAT 214 says, who are some potential trade deadline targets? As we talked about on the channel earlier this week, I'm very intrigued to see what happens with Chris Jones if the Seahawks ultimately are in a position to be able to trade for him if the Chiefs can't get a deal done. The Titans sound like they're going to be potential sellers, wholesale changes at the deadline. They could be moving on from a DeAndre Hopkins or a Derrick Henry. If the Seahawks have injuries at the wide receiver or running back position and they're still in contention, maybe you make a call there for one of those two type of guys. Those are some early ideas potentially of some players that could be out there. And whatever's going on with the Indianapolis Colts, besides Jonathan Taylor, which I don't see that happening, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, those are some guys that come to mind there. Name a player the Seahawks should trade for. I've given you a few possibilities. Now it's your turn to weigh in and give me a name or two that comes to mind. Who should the Seahawks trade for? Let us know.